that the scenes in Charlottesville didn't replicate themselves here.
Those images are extraordinary. I don't care what side you're on. Tensions are so high. When I look at the images and remember that we're in open carry states, it makes me nervous. I want to bring my panel in. Jason Johnson, an MSNBC political contributor and politics editor at TheRoot.com, and my friend Kate Kelly, who covers Wall Street for The New York Times. Jason, on some level, there's no surprises here. President Trump blaming the media for the nation's divisions last night, going harder after the media than he does. I mean, he says, I got the Ku Klux Klan in, but going harder after the media than the Klan or radical Islamists. I want to just share a little bit more of the sound. He loves to say that we twist everything. We don't need to. These are his words.
It's time to expose the crooked media deceptions and to challenge the media for their role in fomenting divisions. And yes, by the way, they are trying to take away our history and our heritage. You see that.
Wink, wink, nod, nod. You know who loves that? Richard Spencer, our heritage. What's your take on all this? One could say his ratings are in the tank,
right,
but his base, they're loving them some Trump.
His base loves Donald Trump. He gave them plenty of things to be excited about. He went and attacked the media. I mean, I think it's fascinating. The President of the United States has just said we're going to basically enter a forever war with Afghanistan. We've had sailors just die in a second crash within 2 months, but he
made no mention of them.
No mention of any of these things.
That's too bad, was his original reaction.
Yeah, that's all he's concerned about. So he wants to sit there and scream about the media. But what this speaks to is also his absolute inability to understand the feelings of this country. Remember, the local GOP in Phoenix, I had several people send this to me, they put out a Craigslist ad advertising for minorities to stand behind Trump during the rally. They were offering them $10 an hour to stand and be a part of the diversity. Yes, and then we have who is officially referred to as Michael the Black Man. He is part of Blacks for Trump. I met him last year, actually during the St. Louis debate. He believes that Barack Obama was the Antichrist, that Hillary Clinton was part of the Ku Klux Klan, and the Trump campaign has been happy to have a man who was part of a murderous cult that was accused of stabbing and beheading people in the early 90s stand behind the President of the United States. So that's what he means by I'm healing divisions.
Okay, so that's who is standing behind President Trump. Kate, let's talk about who's standing next to President Trump. He threatened to shut down the government over funding the wall that was supposed to be paid for by Mexico. He talked about ripping up NAFTA, and while he spent 20 minutes going after the media, recounting Charlottesville, he barely talked about tax reform. So for those globalists who talk about who have won recently, Steve Bannon's out, you got Mnuchin there, Gary Cohn there, Dina, Jared, Ivanka. Where are they in all this?
Well, a lot of interesting developments here. I mean, first of all, the people I talk to, and I've focused quite a bit on tax policy in my reporting because it's an area where business is very interested. And as you know, the Business Roundtable and others have been funding commercials, some of them on this air, to kind of talk about the need to change the tax code. There's an increasing consensus it's not going to happen this calendar year. I mean, maybe they can do some of the spade work, set themselves up for 2018, but it's going to be extremely hard, especially given the divisions between the president and Republican leaders to get this done. They don't have a draft of a bill yet. They've turned it over to the committees. That's going to start in earnest probably after Labor Day. In terms of the moderates, it's very interesting. I mean, I was reading a blog post over the weekend saying that with Steve Bannon gone, himself a former Goldman person, although briefly, it's more the Goldman Sachs presidency than ever because of the presence of these moderates.
Show me where. I heard that argument all weekend long. Listen, they're there behind the scenes, the great work they're doing. Show me exactly where that great work was last night.
Well, I mean, I think at the moment, those people are on the sidelines, right? But as we were talking about, Trump changes his mind frequently. And when he goes to one of these rallies, he's trying to razz up certain less globalist-minded interests and go back to some of his campaign promises that he found to be incredibly effective. Now, today, for all we know, he's huddling with people like this, talking about tax policy, talking about other more moderate plans. The NAFTA issue may just be rhetoric. It's hard to know.
Here's the problem. Like, if the president, if he was like an improv comic or he was doing a rap freestyle, it's fine for him to just go and have a big rally and say whatever he wants. But there's policies that's supposed to be passed. So when he gets an audience, he gets a global audience to watch him, he doesn't spend time on policy. He doesn't talk about
that's not what he cares about. Has he ever been someone who cares about policy, or was the campaign and his reign based on breaking down the system and fighting and power? Because right now, what he did last night is exactly what he wants to do.
I think it was that. that, and to the extent that there was sort of a coherent ideology there, it was probably more Bannon's than anybody else's.
I don't think he ever had one. I think it's a personality cult, and that's all he wants.
All right, I want to go back to Kristen Welker, an exclusive on what President Trump's former rival, Hillary Clinton, has to say. This is pretty revealing. Morning Joe aired a piece of Hillary Clinton's new book coming out in September. What can you tell us?
This is a highly anticipated memoir, Steph. As you point out, Morning Joe got the exclusive first excerpts. This is Hillary Clinton really explaining from her own point of view what happened. That's the title of her memoir. This is not going to be an analysis of the 2016 race. This is going to be a first-person account. And in one of the most notable excerpts from the book, Secretary Clinton talks about what it was like for her during that second debate when then candidate Trump followed her around on the debate stage. Take a listen.
Care Act, and I'm going to fix it because I agree with you. Premiums have gotten too high, co-pays, deductibles, the highest priority of the next president.
When the world heard him brag about groping women. Now we were on a small stage, and no matter where I walked, he followed me closely, staring at me, making faces. It was incredibly uncomfortable. He was literally breathing down my neck. My skin crawled. It was one of those moments where you wish...
Steph, Clinton also talks about the shock that she felt when she lost. Of course, as we all remember, most of the polls showed that she was going to win the race. And she talks about the fact that she feels as though she let down her millions of followers and those who voted for her, Steph. So it's a pretty first-person, personal account of what happened.
All right, I got to get my panel to respond. You know, it was funny. Last night, we didn't hear much about Hillary Clinton. I was going, great. I'm tired of litigating that. And then an excerpt this morning. But when I heard it, it took you back to that second debate with him looming behind her. I don't know. I think I would have turned around and said, why don't you back off?
It was incredibly off-putting to watch at the time, and I agree. It brought me back to that moment, too. It's actually very interesting, her sort of reflection on that situation, because I do think many of us have been in situations where people are sort of flexing their power, subtly or not subtly, making us feel uncomfortable, and we feel like the best thing to do is to go along. So I think that will be a very resonant point for people. Do you?
Not necessarily. I wish this was like Mitt. You remember when the Mitt documentary came out? We're like, you know, he's not such a bad guy. This sounds like the same overly cautious, overly thinking Hillary Clinton that we saw. The man is standing behind you. You've dealt with creepy men. Say, move, get out the way. Like, what's this? I wanted to call him.
But that's what's stunning. Her overly rehearsed and trained and practiced Hillary Clinton is what hurt her so much.
Exactly.
Trump unplugged. Look, you had Trump unplugged last night. People loved Trump being Trump. If she would have turned around and said, hey, Predator, can you back it up? People probably would have liked that.
Exactly. That was the right thing to do, but her whole MO was, let me focus on the ideology, the policy, my preparedness for office. This is the contrast between me and this thug, in her words, probably. Also, in terms of the campaign history, if you've read Shattered, which probably a lot of your audience has, side by side with what sounds like is in this Hillary Clinton book, it'll be very interesting, because that was all about the broken campaign apparatus and the infighting and the silos, the wrong-headed strategy.
At the end of the day, people wanted to look. Obviously, she got more votes than he did, so she should have, won the election.
But she lost the election.
But she lost the election. At the end of the day, you had to show passion. That's what she missed. That's what Al Gore missed.
Absolutely.
You can't win an election if people don't think you're fighting for them, and if you just have some passive way of responding to a creep, they're not going to like you.
Wait a minute. You think Mitt Romney doesn't show passion? I'm joking. I'm joking. All right, we're going to take a break. What a morning. Next.